Hey there, welcome to Top Brass. And in today's episode, we have a special guest. His name is Gerry Plana. He's the president of the People Management Association of the Philippines, and he's currently the chairman of Inspiring Partners, who also carries the brand and an organization called Investors in People. Welcome to the show, Gerry.
Well, thank you, Boris.
Hey, I've always admired you in so many ways. To begin with, you belong to an organization that advocates organizational health and well-being for employees, and that company is called Investors in People. Can you tell us more about Investors in People, Gerry?
Okay, Investors in People is an international standard on people management and leadership. So this is something that has been started in the United Kingdom way back in the early 90s. And to this day, it has spread in some countries all over the world, and the Philippines is lucky to be one of them, to be having this license to operate. So what we do is we promote good practices attached to the high-performing organizations of the world, and this is something that local organizations in the Philippines benchmark with, so that they can improve their own practices.
So high-performing organizations and best practices.
That's right.
And how old is Investors in People?
Well, it started in the early 90s internationally. In the Philippines, only as an independent organization, only in 2011.
Okay, 2011. And ever since you were the key proponent of that principle and that framework.
Yes, together with a colleague called Janet Webster.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
And then you're also running it not only in the Philippines, but also outside the country, right?
Well, yes, we get assignments internationally as well, although that's not our territory. The Philippines is only our exclusive licensed territory. But because we are internationally connected, we get to do work in Australia, in New Zealand, in Japan, and other neighboring countries.
It's interesting when you say high performing, because I know a lot of organizations would like to achieve that kind of level. How would you describe in your own words, in succinct, specific words, what is high performing as an organization?
Actually, the standard has 9 indicators by which a high-performing organization can base their performance or practices on. So what organizations would usually do, without a standard, they don't know whether they're really high-performing or not. Really. That's why the standard really is a good feedback mechanism. It's a good benchmarking tool whereby you can really see where you are in terms of these 9 standards. Remember, these standards were based on research worldwide that says these are the 9 indicators that high-performing organizations around the world are doing.
Of course, I know the standards because I've been working with you guys,
yes.
Investors in People. But just for the sake of our audience, how would you define or summarize the standards, Gerry? So it covers leadership.
Well, it covers a lot about leadership and management. It talks about values, it talks about managing performance, it talks about rewards and recognition. You name everything that impacts on people and how people behave and perform in organizations is practically covered by these 9 standards.
So how it impacts people.
That's right.
Speaking of that, you're currently the president of the People Management Association of the Philippines. It's a mouthful. PMAP, People Management Association of the Philippines. And it's the premier organization for people managers.
That's right. Human resource managers and people managers. That's correct.
It used to be called personnel management, right?
Way back. That was the old term that we used, personnel. But the word personnel was more used for the traditional way of doing HR work.
And now it has evolved beyond that.
Yeah, that's why it's called HR. People.
Okay.
Yes.
So, does that cover what you were saying a while ago about impacting people? Is PMAP concerned about that?
Oh, yes, definitely. There's a lot of HR work that needs to be done in organizations, from very basic to high-level HR work. I would say that good practice would be in the high-level HR work level in terms of making organizations more high-performing.
So when you say high-level HR work, what do you mean by that?
It means to say that whatever HR does impacts on business performance. So it's
connected.
It's connected. It's something that these are HR programs or solutions that we bring to the table so that the business performance improves.
So if you invest and take care of your people,
that's right.
your business improves, your business performance, profitability.
Oh yes, definitely. Especially in this day and age where we say there's talent war, everybody wants to be an employer of choice. There's a struggle with retaining and attracting talent. I think there's no way to say, but we have to take care of our people today.
Wonderful. So it's like common good. If you promote common good, your commercial purposes or objectives are achieved.
Oh yes.
As well.
Yes.
And this is something that you're advocating or teaching all the PMAP members. And how many members do you have?
Well, PMAP is about 2,500 corporate members all over the country.
Wow.
Because we have 29 chapters all over the Philippines. So that's the size of the organization. And all the HR heads or representatives of these organizations are the ones that are active in the PMAP organization.
And truly, it's a huge organization that has a big influence and impact in the country. And when you were saying that, it all boils down to leadership. I remember you said in one of the orientation in PMAP, which I was part of, you said something that it all boils down on leadership. Leadership is the cornerstone of what a high-performing organization should be. Can you expound more on that?
Yes.
How important is leadership?
I think more than any other time, I think we're beginning to realize today that leadership is at the core of what can make or unmake organizations. So the sad fact is still a number of organizations do not develop leaders in a very continuous manner. It's as if they develop leaders on a one-off, two-off event and they say that's it. I think the way to develop leaders is through a continuous process. And this is where these investors in people comes in to provide that continuous improvement journey that organizations must undertake to continuously upgrade the level of leadership. Remember, leadership is all about people. If people are truly important assets, and they are today, it could make or break the business. Leadership is critical. The quality of that leadership. Because if the quality is not there, this is where all the people issues come out. People leave the organization, people resist change, people don't give their total selves to their work, and so on and so forth.
I love what you're saying. So essentially, you're saying the people issue is the business issue.
Oh yes.
And you're also saying that if the leader improves, everybody wins.
Oh yes, yes. That's how powerful leadership is. But the sad fact is, we never got trained on leadership in schools. There's no systematic process for developing leadership. That's left to chance. Most of the school preparation is left on the hard academics, really. You're studying engineering, you get graded and assessed there. But the leadership, yes, you have a lot of these student activities, but that's left to chance. That's why there's a lot of catch-up that we do in organizations in terms of leadership development, training, and coaching. Because that is precisely what's needed now. A lot of organizations today are what I might call overmanaged and underled.
Overmanaged and underled.
Yes, that's why we have a lot of these people issues.
You're right. I get what you're saying. I mean, if you're an engineer or you're an IT specialist, or if you're an architect, you have that technical skill. But once you're part of an architectural firm or engineering firm, you may not necessarily have the people skills to lead other people.
To lead, to work with people, and so on and so forth.
Now, how would you prescribe it, Gerry? I mean, with your years of wealthy experience, not just in PMAP, but as a people manager, as a people leader, what would you prescribe as a wonderful development, let's say, pathway or roadmap for a leader to have? Or what are the building blocks must we have to build a leader, for example?
Okay. Every organization today must be very seriously talking about their leadership strategy in their specific organization. Okay. And this can be developed by having a conversation around management teams and say, if we develop our own strategy, what kind of a leadership should we have in this organization? And this is where the concept of a leadership brand really comes into,
leadership brand.
Leadership brand, meaning say, how should leaders in my organization lead so that we can implement this strategy we just developed? And when we talk about leadership brands, one leadership brand might be good for you, but not good for others. Like for instance, right nowadays, there's a brand like, do you want to be a transformational leader? Do you want to be an engaging leader? Do you want to be a transactional leader? More and more, the inspirational and the engaging leader is something that stands out today. because that is what really resonates with a lot of people. You know, they want to be engaged, they want to be inspired, so that they can respect and trust the leaders that lead them.
Wonderful. As you say that more, I'd like to go back on the leadership brand definition. How would you define leadership brand? I mean, how do you brand leadership to begin with?
We are all familiar with the firm brand. Okay, a lot of organizations now, to be able to stand out among a crowded market, you know, is to brand themselves or rebrand themselves, you know. So what can distinguish them from competition? If a company has established its own firm brand, leadership brand is simply saying, how should leaders be behaving so that the firm brand is enhanced? What sort of values and qualities should leaders display inside the organization and outside the organization so that the firm brand is enhanced? So it is something that really enhances the firm brand.
So you're talking about culture.
Yeah, I'm talking about culture, how leaders should behave, treat others, be viewed by others as well.
So if that's the case, should one company's leadership brand be different from another company's leadership brand?
Oh yes. Like for instance, in the case of Apple, if Apple says we want to be known to be the highly innovative organization in the world, you know, you must expect that their leadership brand should be innovative leadership. Leaders who are promoting innovation and breathes and sleeps innovation, because that is the firm brand that Apple wants to have.
I get you. So if the brand of this particular company is excellence, then you should be an excellent leader.
That's right.
If the brand of this company is service, then you must demonstrate servant leadership or service orientation or customer centricity, for example. Yeah, okay. But you did mention a while ago, and I'm going back and recapping what you said about inspiring leaders, transformative leaders, or transformational leaders. Isn't that something that's encompassing, having emotional intelligence or empathy or just relating well with people? Isn't that something universal for all companies to have?
Well, relating with people well is just one level, but inspiration is another level higher. It simply means how do you get the best out of people? You know, if we're so excited these days about machines and AI and robotics, I think we should equally, if not more, excited about what people can give. Remember, human potential is still untapped. You know, we're just using about 10 or 20% of what humans can do. So this is where the leaders come in, inspiring leaders. You know, how can I unleash the potentials of the people in this organization? If people are truly the greatest asset, and I think it's a lot of untapped asset, you know, this is where leadership comes in. How do I make people flourish?
How do you maximize?
How do you maximize? How do you make people do their very best in the organization?
What you're saying to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, actually comes across as the level 5 leadership that Jim Collins refers to in his book, Good to Great. And that's fine, it's wonderful, and I think it's our viewers should really embrace that vision of them as leaders. But talk to me, for example, if I'm a manager and I want to build my leadership potential or brand, what are the things that I need in order to get there? Of course, I can't easily jump into being a manager now and an inspiring leader.
That's right.
How do I develop? How do I grow?
If you're a member of an organization and you know clearly what the leadership brand is, you can develop a leadership development plan that can, you know, that can raise your level of leadership in that particular brand, in that organization. One thing I find out that's very critical for development, for continuing development, is feedback.
Okay.
I think feedback plays a role because a lot of leaders don't usually get feedback. That's why they never develop, because they never improve, because nobody's giving them feedback. Feedback seems to be a challenge to leaders in organizations. So unless you systematize that, you make a mechanism and you make people accept that, and you know, leaders will not grow and develop within the organization. And that has to be regular feedback.
Receiving and embracing feedback.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. Otherwise, you know, leaders suffer from self-delusion most of the time. Okay. And if there's no feedback, nobody's breaking that self-delusion.
I get you. I want to break it down further because to our viewers it might sound very simple. But Ken Blanchard actually said that feedback is the breakfast of champions. And it seems easy, but if truth be told, we're allergic to feedback.
Yes.
Because we think that when people give us feedback, they're out to attack us and criticize our leadership. But when you actually become a better leader, when you when you eat feedback for breakfast because you want to grow and become better. So I'm hearing you quite well. So do you think organizations should institutionalize that, make that as a formal, so generating feedback?
Yeah, it looks simple, but it for many organizations, I think that's going to be a cultural change. Because in some organizations, just speaking up your mind sometimes is very difficult. What more giving feedback to a leader?
So like
That's why you can use surveys.
Okay.
Probably that's one way of doing that. You can use more frequent surveys until you reach a point that you're so mature you can openly just talk about feedback during meetings.
Okay, so you can actually put mechanisms to make that happen. But on my own, for example, I could just generate feedback. Just be open and talk to my team and say, hey, how do you think that meeting went? How did you think I handled the project?
Yes.
What went wrong?
Or you can ask a very simple question to your people. You can ask every time you have an activity, is there anything else I can do as a leader so that I can be a better leader to you? What would that be?
Wonderful, yeah.
Simple questions like that. And if you sincerely ask those questions, you get good answers, you improve as a leader.
So we talked about strategy, we talked about feedback. What else in order for me to develop into that inspiring leader?
I think there's no substitute to really being put on the fire. I mean to say you really have a real project, you're really given a group of people to really lead, an assignment, a development assignment, whether you call it development assignment or real assignment, where you're able to use what you know in terms of leadership.
Okay, really just hands-on.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Get your
right.
hands dirty.
But there are a few basics in leadership that one should really remember that are related to leadership. Like, you should have a vision, aside from just having a goal. And the difference between the two is the vision is inspiring. Goals by themselves may not be too inspiring, but when you combine vision with goals, then they become an inspiring piece of conversation.
So vision.
Vision is more, this is where we want to be at the
Your
certain day.
destination,
It's it's an aspiration. So when you combine aspiration with specific targets or goals, that becomes a more inspiring rather than just targets.
Okay.
And not see the vision.
So when you have the vision that's your destination and you have goals, it's like targets or milestones
right.
that brings you closer
That's
to your
right.
destination.
That's right. So you become a more inspiring leader. Another inspiring leader practice is they spend time with development conversations aside from just performance conversations.
I like that. Okay, let's spell that out a bit. So development conversations versus performance conversations.
Because a lot of the conversations happening in organizations now are just performance. That's a managerial,
approach.
But a leader is somebody who's concerned about your growth. And as a matter of fact, more and more organizations are beginning to realize today that probably if you have more development conversations, you'll have less performance problems.
Wow,
Because
you're right.
People really grow and they're able to solve performance issues.
I learned from that. I mean, my tendency is always to make things happen, get things done, results-oriented. And those are performance conversations because I would talk to my team and wonder where they are with our targets and goals. But then you're right. If that occupies majority of my time with them, then it's probably futile to actually see my leadership and my team grow. And I should be having development conversations.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, another practice probably that might be interesting for leaders is learn how to recognize rather than just criticize.
Okay.
Because recognize rather than criticize. There's this ratio. They say 1:5. If you should criticize once, you should give recognition 5 times or praise.
Wow.
To maintain a positive relationship with people.
Sa Tagalog at tagang bawi.
Yes.
You make bawi 5 times.
Yes.
Okay. So So we talked about vision. We talked about goal setting, basically having goal setting. We talked about development conversation versus performance conversation. And now you're telling me that recognition is multiplied 5 times whenever you criticize. Okay. Anything else that you think is important in that prescription?
I think those basics are, if leaders can just get this right, I think it will improve the quality of their leadership, and that would impact on the performance of the team.
I love it. Now, Jerry, we've talked about leader development, and essentially that's the topic of this episode. But there are other people that are under leadership. I mean, they're under different leaders. They're being managed by people. And I remember you also said something like, every one of us are practically victims of bad leadership. So what advice can you give to people who are under bad leadership?
Well, I think my first advice is to get out.
Okay.
Okay, I think
you heard it from me. You get out. You resign.
I think really, really bad leaders can literally kill you.
Okay.
You know, they can give you undue stress, and you know, I mean, there's a lot of there's some studies that's indicating that if you persist long under a bad leadership environment, it could make you sick. You know, there's some physical impact.
There's health implications.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Yeah, the physical well-being of the employees is affected with bad leadership.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that's why they say bad leadership can literally kill one. So this is interesting. You know, that's why I think every leader should really make it a point to become a good leader, because leadership should not be taken lightly.
Okay.
The moment you are given the care of other people, I think it is one's responsibility to improve himself as a leader, aside from just being a manager.
Like you won't even be patient or tolerate it a bit, maybe because even though the leader is bad.
Well, some people get something good out of bad leaderships. They learn from that.
Yeah.
So the next time around, they become a leader. At least I've learned what not to do.
Okay.
They say.
Okay. So it's like observing bad examples and avoiding it.
That's right. That's right.
But I think what's key with what you're saying is that you put a deadline in the tolerance that you're.
Of course,
because
you know,
it's detrimental to your health and your well-being.
It could affect you negatively.
And I want to pick up with what you were saying a while ago, that leadership is important to the total well-being of the organization or society. You were saying that it's imperative that leadership becomes transformational and inspiring.
Oh yes, these days I think it has to go that way, because that's the only brand of leadership that could really get the best out of people. And there's a lot of getting the best out of people we can do. There's so many obstacles that prevent people from doing the very best, you know, that they can do. And leadership plays a very important role in that effort.
What do you think are the automatic or the wonderful benefits of good leadership?
Good leadership translates to a high-performing organization.
Mm-hmm. A high-performing organization gets you there.
The high-performing gets you there,
good
you know,
purposes are.
and you know, satisfies all your stakeholders. Isn't it?
Any last words, Gerry, that you would like to share to our audiences watching us?
I think, you know, whenever we reflect on leadership, you know, one of the best definitions of leadership I got was this. They say leaders are not responsible for results. They're responsible for the people who deliver the results. I think that is a very short but meaningful reminder to us what leadership is all about. It's not about ourselves, it's about others. And we need to do that so that we can multiply ourselves. Otherwise, we're not leading, we're just being an individual contributor.
Wow. Spoken like a true, inspiring leader. Gerry, thank you so much for being with us in this episode. There you go. You heard it from the man himself, Mr. Gerry Plana. I hope you got so many tips on how to develop your own leadership wherever you are, wherever you're working. Thank you for joining us in today's episode.